think a lot of it just comes back to that total cost of ownership. I can't tell
Okay.
you how many POCs I did that were incredibly exciting and worked great as POCs. And then I'd go ask for money and
Yeah.
do math. And it was going to cost, hundreds of millions of dollars to deploy this just on a hardware component.
Right.
So it was really hard to do like a piecemeal deployment. It was hard to do like this incremental step to get to that long-term ROI. Where here, if I'm asking you to throw on a phone case and tag a couple things upstream, you can play with it. You can go from a POC to a pilot, and you can like whet your appetite over time and understand if you're getting an ROI without making it a massive upfront investment.
So how are retailers approaching that you've worked with? I mean, are they just doing it for a certain category or are they kind of going all in? Like, what does that look like?
Typically, they start with like a limited deployment
Okay.
on the category they care most about. And where we get a lot of traction is with people that care a lot about freshness. So you think
Yes.
about things like strawberries or
Mm.
like I mentioned before, things that are very vulnerable. And inevitably, you put the tags on and you see things you don't want to see. You watch berries freeze and then get left out and hit 80 degrees Fahrenheit. We saw Halloween candy hit 114 degrees in
Oh,
transit one
yeah.
time.
Ugh.
Okay, no, so that's crazy. So what you got me thinking about is like I can now know, say when my truck comes in, how long everything's been sitting idle on, next to the shelves waiting to be stocked in the freezers or the refrigeration cases as well. That's what you're telling me, Thaddeus, because that data is not doesn't exist. It's all
Yeah.
based on trust today.
Correct. Like we have an example where we tracked berries. We watched them freeze, then we watched them hit 80 degrees, and we knew the location because we get location. So we just went to the store and we just took pictures and we just watched it as it sits outside of the cooler. And that's the power. And the executives resonate with that. They know what's happening
Mhm.
in the store, but they don't have the data to be able to act on it. And we
Mhm.
basically pull the curtain back and say, here are your problems. Here's how they're actionable. Go after it. And we give them that data.
What are the use cases where you find the most dramatic impact or payback for the retailers that you're deploying with? What are those? Is that one of them? Are there others?
I think the primary one today, and this is more of a structural issue, so just bear
Okay.
with me for a second,
Mm-hmm.
is that there are very simple ways to make sure you can get value out of the right products making it to the right store. So a lot of what we do is did the right things make it on the right truck and go to the store or to the right house, last mile delivery. But I think a lot of what we're seeing like adoption around is freshness, but a lot of retailers don't know what to do with that.
Mm.
Okay, it was out of temperature compliance. What do we do? And that's where it's harder to be actionable right now. And they don't even sometimes have business models around what does a deviation from temperature mean for me and what do I do with that information? So there is a ton of interest, but they're still wrapping their heads around how to deal with it because what you really need is a freshest first stocking paradigm instead of first in, first out. I
Mm.
don't know if that makes sense or not. Like,
It does. It does make
Mhm.
sense. Yes.
so, but that's a harder thing and a longer road to get to adoption. Beyond that, in stores, I think the thing that really brings the most value, if you look at just dollars,
Mm-hmm.
is like buy online, fulfill in store. Like we're
Okay.
seeing this rapid adoption of omni-channel retail, obviously accelerated by the pandemic, but with that comes unprecedented requirements for inventory accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, you just had to have beans on the shelf. Now you need to know exactly how many beans you have so you can promise that to a customer online. And we know the things that are in the back room aren't always there. The things that we think are on the shelf aren't always there. And so, how do you give them information about where their products actually are with a high degree of accuracy in a passive way that doesn't require more labor? Because that's also
Mhm.
more expensive than it's ever been.
Right.
So, that omni channel piece is really where we're seeing also a lot of adoption.